Welcome to the DroidDevCast, a podcast brought to you by the team at Esper, bringing you the latest news, thoughtful discussion, and insights into all things Android, Android DevOps, and open source software development. I'm your host, Rin Oliver, Content Marketing Manager at Esper, and today I'm joined by Esper COO and co-founder Shiv Sundar. And we're here this week to learn more about best practices for purpose-built Android devices. To wrap up the show, we'll dive into what makes a good reason to use a purpose-built device and what a bad reason is to consider purpose-built devices and what that might look like. So with that said, let's get started. So Shiv, retail devices like phones and tablets are used in hospitals, retail, and restaurants for single-use cases. What are your thoughts on that?
When Android came out and majority of the use cases were consumer use cases, phones and tablets, you have all this personalized applications and consumer applications. Enterprises realized that they were going to deploy devices. And the easiest thing to do is go buy off-the-shelf devices from Amazon or from any other OEM and then deploy them, right? I mean, the easiest combination to do is buy retail devices, use some sort of an MDM and lock it down and put your enterprise applications in front and center, in some cases kiosk mode, and launch them. It does work. It's not saying that it's not effective. It does work. It's faster. It's quicker. But there are a lot of loopholes around it. People can exit out of the kiosk mode. They can sometimes bypass the security settings and policies and install other application. And in some cases, the phone form factor or the tablet form factor are not the most optimum, right? You need something that is rugged for maybe in transportation or ELD use cases. You need some ports that are required. In some cases, you need hardware Ethernet, and those are not available on retail devices. So there are some shortcomings. It's a good start, but I think as you scale your business and if you have more need and you really know what your use cases are, it's better to do something that is purpose-built rather than go the retail route.
Great. And so recently, we're starting to see a lot of small to medium-sized businesses, startups, and larger enterprises source devices from places like China. What are key things that companies need to follow when sourcing devices from China or from other areas of the world that may have, for example, a lower price tag and might not necessarily have a high quality threshold?
Price points, like, you go to Alibaba or you go to you ping a few vendors, you get a slew of hardware choices. The price point looks super attractive. The first thing everybody does is okay, let me calculate the price, right? Okay, it's like $50 to buy the device and then import and ship and provision the device. It's mostly the major factor in buying devices from or sourcing devices from China. We work with a lot of hardware vendors, both people who source devices, people who buy OEM devices. There needs to be a little bit more consideration into it, right? I mean, what chipset are you using? Are you using like the MediaTek or the Qualcomm chipset? Are you using the little lower end chipsets? What is the Android version of the device, right? I mean, what is the OS version? What does the support looks like for this device? Let's say you go deploy 10,000 of these devices and your manufacturers go bust. How are you going to support those devices, right? I mean, that's one question to think about. The key thing is in the ecosystem, the person you're buying the device is most likely not the person who made the device. So that there's a person who makes the PCB or the printed circuit board. There's a person who assembles, puts a display, and then the labeling goes in. Somebody who makes the software. It's called the independent software vendor. So multiple people in the ecosystem, and you eventually are buying it from somebody who's selling it right. So you don't know who the source of the hardware is. So it's very critical to understand who the device came from. It's good to make a factory visit, good to figure out who the manufacturer of the PCB is, and then compare across multiple things. In some cases, it's good to at least have some kind of a consultant on ground to figure out where this hardware is being built and sourced. The other thing to look after is has this hardware or this combination of hardware and software shipped? How many devices have been shipped? What is the reliability? Things like that. On the software side, we really recommend that you don't know what's under the hood in the Android, right? I mean, what kind of spyware and kind of bloatware that's going to be there, and you're deploying in Androids in enterprise scenarios. It's very important that you get full control of your source. So as a part of the purchase agreement, you negotiate that, hey, I want the entire source. I'm going to build my entire Android operating system. I'm going to sign it. I'm going to maintain it. So taking control of your software is super critical when sourcing hardware from China. That quickly, when you ask for software source or software binaries, you quickly know that person who's selling you the hardware doesn't own the hardware or own the software. So you can quickly discover those issues. So I think people should take a much more scientific approach to purchasing devices, especially for enterprise use case from China. It's not about just saving those dollars, because whatever money you save on hardware cost might go down when you have to support them and you have like angry customers and you have like device and hardware recalls.
Is building custom hardware the right choice for vertical use cases?
The good part right now was that there are a lot of enterprise focused OEMs who are making kiosks, OEMs who are making like POS devices, OEMs who are making rugged handles. So what used to be only custom hardware now is available under various form factors or various, like, in POS, when like Clover and Square built their custom hardware, there was no Android POS devices existed. So they had to build it. Great industrial design, works great. But now a lot of mainstream OEMs have come and like, hey, if you go, and a lot of brands have POS devices available. Even Verifone and Ingenico, the credit card companies, they have like Android POS versions that are very reliable. In many cases, if you can actually go and you can find a reliable brand or an OEM that actually ships your hardware. Custom development should be restricted to some real unique use cases. Let's say you're building an exercise machine or a treadmill, or building like a new unique security camera, and it's very, very unique play. Then you need to go look at the custom hardware route, right? I mean, because you're going to design the chipset, and in some cases you can actually instead of designing the entire hardware, you can buy what we call as SOM or system on modules that are complete PCBs, and you can just do the industrial design around it. So you get a much reliable PCB underneath, but you can build an ID that is like unique to sell your value proposition. So Esper has some great partnership with MediaTek, where people are looking to make custom devices. We have what you call as a red carpet path. You come into MediaTek, tell what the use case is, they will give you the reference design, and they will actually help you find the manufacturer and the ID design house. So it's completely red carpet process. There is no cost involved. It is just part of the MediaTek, I would say, AI OT effort to bring like more connected devices to home and to enterprises.
And now, with this knowledge in mind, what are some good and bad reasons to purpose build a device?
It's the question of like, when you're actually going to consumers, you want to take control of your own hardware, right? I mean, it's your hardware is your brand eventually, and everybody is going to experience it. So they want the user experience, the look and feel, the design, the touch, they want to control it, because you at the end of the day, hardware is a product that they're buying, and you want to be in control of it. And if something goes wrong in terms of software or in terms of hardware, you can quickly recover from it. That's the reason people build custom built hardware. You do need, I would say, like when you're building custom built hardware, it's actually, you need to have some size of in-house hardware and embedded system team who can actually do the designs, do the verification. I mean, you need to have some engineering staff in house to make that successful. Just relying on third party companies, or even if you have a system integrator who's reliable enough, that should be good enough. We do have a lot of partners or system integrators who can help technology companies, but some sort of knowledge and talent around building the current custom hardware and software and firmware for it is required to be successful, in my opinion. If done right, and if your volumes are 50,000, 100,000 devices, you eventually, the costs doesn't matter. You actually come out on the other side with a great product, a great price point, a great customer experience.
And I'm going to go off script a little bit here. For the smaller companies that are working with new things, such as having the ability to have a point of sale in your phone and the Square card readers, etc., what do you see as being a focal point that small businesses should focus on in today's day and age for building a small business with, for example, a mobile device such as their phone?
Yeah, for small business, I think the choice is amazing, right? I mean, you can just go from a Square reader on an iPhone to, you can go to like a handheld device from a Verifone, or you can get like Toast is other great example, is a great Android POS.
Yeah, PayPal sent me a PayPal Here or PayPal Go system. I forget what they call it. It's for my Android. They sent it right to me. They're like, here's your card reader. Enjoy. I'm like, oh, cool. That's fun. And now if I want to, I can take my card reader to the farmer's market or wherever and just start making sales. And it's hooked right up to our e-commerce backend. It's great. I can just take sales on my phone.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good options, right? And usually, like when you're banking with Wells Fargo or Bank of America, they're tied up to some POS vendor that they would actually like give it to you for free. So options are great. I think it's very easy for you to just get an iPhone and put a square, but I would recommend that just have a dedicated payment device. However small business you are, goes a long way. Even if you're going that route, I recommend just buying a dedicated iPhone or a dedicated Android phone that's just meant for payment processing and things like that. I think that, I mean, POS efficiencies, I mean, there's enough said about it. Getting the right POS system can make a big difference in your margins and revenues. Just like how fast it processes, how the experience is, how soon can you make orders happen, right?
Absolutely. I think that's really changing e-commerce in general too, is that addition of what you can do with any Android phone in terms of creating that point of sale experience. And I think that's really been helpful, especially in our current situation, is that people are able to do more with less in times of uncertainty. They don't have to be in person. They can still make sales and they can still run a business entirely online.
I think even Stripe realized it, and Stripe is like launched terminal product, and they're going to have a lot of hardware that are integrated with Stripe. So if you want to get a little bit more technical, you can actually have in-store or small business or physical hardware in your home if you're running an online commerce that is connected to Stripe. So it's complete processing of things. Even like Shopify, for example, they have some supported hardware that can go along with it. With like, it's just, yeah, right now I think there's technologies for small businesses around e-commerce or payments and hardware is at its peak. Anybody should be able to start a small business and set up and get going very quickly.
Great. And lastly, what are the most important considerations for working with single purpose devices that companies should keep in mind in order to succeed at their own business goals?
I think it's very critical to look at holistically, right? It's this your application that's sitting on it. You have the hardware that are single purpose devices, interaction points, what environment, what peripherals, is it a printer, is it a credit card reader, and then how is your business going to evolve, right? What are the things what are the use cases going to involve? Is it going to be who's going to use it? Is it the customer going to use it? For example, if you're payment, is it if you go to a restaurant, is it a kiosk for ordering, or is it POS for taking orders, or is it like order at your table device that's left at the diner for him to make orders? So I think you really think through what the use cases are and make sure you pick the right combination of hardware. Make sure your software is built for that. Android is like, even though it's flexible, it has a lot of variation. So it's very critical that you actually have a hardware that is meant or built for your application. You build your application that is customized for your hardware experience and test it even before you launch it. So it's like if your phone is 7-inch or your tablet is 10-inch, you need to make sure that software development is built focused on those hardware devices. Just make sure that it's into consideration during the development process. Oftentimes what happens is that you build for a phone or a tablet and then it's deployed on a completely different device. And on field, you see all these issues that you never saw. If you're building a kiosk application, make sure you know what the kiosk form factor looks like and make sure it's built and tested for that scenario.
Did you have anything else that you would like to impart on our listeners in terms of their knowledge for a single purpose, purposeful device for their own use?
No, I think if you're a business and if you have a hardware need, I mean, yes, iPhone and iPads can get you started, but I think as you scale, Android can offer a lot of flexibility and it's significant price points, various choices. I mean, Esper is here to help. Even though hardware is not our business, we provide a cloud-based platform for managing applications and software on these devices. We believe that the hardware choice is super critical for you to succeed, and we are here to help businesses from small businesses to customers deploying thousands and thousands of devices, or in some cases 100,000 devices. Hardware choice is very, very critical, and I think you should go beyond the cost of hardware when evaluating the hardware. Is it the right piece of hardware? Is it a good experience? What is going to be the support? What is going to be the life cycle? How hard is it going to be to manage these devices? How can you configure and ship those devices? We have this special devices called Esper Enhanced Android, where we work with manufacturers to drop ship devices. You can build custom purpose-built devices and can ship directly into a hotel or a restaurant or a healthcare facility, and it will just configure on boot with Esper. So the significant operation efficiency that you can achieve when you make the right hardware choices and during deployment and afterwards during customer support and field support.
Well, Shiv, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you to our listeners so much for joining us on this episode of the DroidDevCast. We'll be back next week with another exciting show for you. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this episode on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at EsperDev and subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep up with all the latest happenings here at Esper. You can listen to the DroidDevCast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Simplecast, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you again for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful day.